Hey everybody, so what we're going to be tying here is a basic Thunder Creek pattern. It's going to look something like this. There's actually a lot you can do with these guys. I mean, just a ton. Numerous colors, add hackling, and just all kinds of stuff. But what we're going to do is we're just going to tie a basic one. So a couple things that you're going to want to have handy is a hollow pin, so we can push material and reverse it along that shank. Not necessary, but it is definitely helpful. Also, you're going to want to keep a towel handy, a cup of water, and really all we're going to be using is some crystal flash. I'm just doing it here in this fluorescent orange just so you can see it. Normally I do it in a UV pearl on this color. And then I'm going to just use a green and white bucktail, and that's really it. That's all there is to it. And if you wanted to, at the end, you can add some eyes. I prefer these like little stick-on eyes. The original ones were made out of epoxy, whatnot, but I just prefer these little stick-on eyes. And then also, it does help if you, for longevity of it anyway, if you use some UV resin for the head. Again, that part is not necessary. The only thing that's necessary is, and if you're using white thread, a red marker. Otherwise, red thread will be fine. But a lot of those aren't necessary. All that's really necessary is your three materials and either a red marker or red thread. So we're going to start our thread. Normally I start a bodkin width or so behind, but on this pattern we are going to start right behind the eye. And the reason for that is we're going to tie in a bunch of material there. And yeah, so you want it right behind the eye. We're going to take our thread to the back third position and trim that off. And what I'll do next is I'll bring this forward about a third of the way that I originally wrapped. The next one I'm going to do is I'm going to get just two strands of the crystal flash. And when I get them, I'm going to pinch them in the middle and make sure that I have pretty close to an equal distance on both sides. And I'll take, when I'm pinching them with my right thumb and right index, I'll take my left hand and pull it back and pinch the material like that so it forms the loop. Then I'm going to cut this loop right in the middle. And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to take it, find the middle, kind of let it dangle off the sides to make sure I've got it right about the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, so I mean, you can have a little bit trailing, no big deal. And I'm going to cut that in half again. Then we're going to tie this on. The easy way to tie this on is actually just to bring your material on. Your thread's going to be on the front side facing you. Bring the material from the back side and catch it on the thread and just lift it up and set it in place. Then you can pinch it on. I'm going to make 2 wraps towards the back. I'm going to take this crystal flash and fold it over. Make 2 more wraps, and there it is. It's on. Now, if you want to, this is a good time to take that, and I can't see it very well, but how these are all uneven. Take that and you can trim it to make it even if you want. You don't have to. It's not a must. So really, that's it. That's it for that part. Next, and this is also an option that I didn't talk about, but you can do that. If you want it to sink faster, you can add wraps of lead wire in this section here. Just make sure that you've given yourself about 2 bodkin widths away from the eye, so that when we reverse tie this, you'll have a nice smooth foundation to create that little bullet head. I'm not going to add that weight on this one, but just some food for thought if you want to do that. So what we need to do is kind of build up a little head here. And again, I'm kind of staying away from the right up the front. And we want to fill this in. Now, you're going to want to go to the front a little bit maybe, but the idea is this section right in here, we want to build it kind of like a football shape. And it takes a minute or two. A lot of thread wraps here. If you use the wire, or the lead wire, you won't have to use, or shouldn't have to use as much thread to get this little, it helps kind of build that shape for you. So, but this thread here is going to be kind of the base foundation for getting that shape, that little football shape that we want. So you want to have it, see, I'm going forward again sometimes, just to try to keep it at an even distribution to get that shape. And it does, it chews up some thread on this one. I'm going to focus a little more in the middle here. And we'll just take our time. Well, I'm not really taking my time, I suppose, but it takes a minute, and I'm not going to get too crazy with this. You'll be able to experiment with this at home. And take your time and really build it up to the taper that you want. You'll see that I'm coming back now into this backside so that it continues that little football shape on the backside. Now, when we get back here to where the crystal flash is just meeting the shank again, that's going to be our tie-in point. That's where this little collar or throat is going to be. You can see right there. So all that buildup is in here, and then we've got just shank back there. So that part is good. Then we're going to bring our thread all the way right up to behind the eye. Let's see here. Next, I'm going to get some bucktail, and for these little guys, it doesn't matter tremendously where you get your bucktail from. Some big streamer patterns, it does make a difference how it reacts in the water, but for these little ones, it's not going to make a huge difference. So what we're going to do is, and because we are going to strip a lot of this material out, so you want to have a really good sized clump, maybe something not quite as big of a round as a Sharpie, but similar. And what I'll end up typically do is do 2 of these at a time. I'm going to trim that off. I'll typically do 2 of these at a time. So now I've got this huge clump. So if I were to kind of show you, engage it, I mean, that's way bigger than this hook. And that hook, by the way, this is a number 4 streamer hook from Mustad. I should have shown that at the beginning, but this is what this hook is. So this is a pretty good size hook. So what I'll actually do is I will take this and I'll just divide it and split it in 2. And I'll set one group to the side. And then I will take and pinch towards the tip side, and I will grab whatever stuff is coming out the back and get rid of it, and I can kind of flick it. And it's going to keep doing this a few times just so you can find the short ones or long ones and get them out of there and kind of even them up. You can use a hair stacker on these if you want. I tend to find that it's using a hair stacker on long bucktail like this is just it's a little bit tough, and I kind of like to have that full tapered look at the back anyway. So anyhow, we want, and this is pretty heavy here. We want this to be kind of sparse. Sorry, I keep taking that out of the camera. I'm getting my long ones out. Any of these crooked ones I'll take out. And so you can kind of pick through it here. That's going to be pretty full, but we'll go with it. So then I'll take that material, and I want to measure that up to the back. So the way I like to do it is have this crystal flash sitting inside this tail and not coming onto the outside, but you can totally have it sitting out if you want. It's really up to you. So I'll just make sure that I've got enough covering that distance, and then once I do that, I'm going to take this and dunk it in that water and get it totally wet. And so I'll do that real quick. And I do turn the bucktail around so that I can get both sides, so that you've got something that's kind of clumped together that looks like that. And that's a pretty good distance there. It's going to be a little long. So I'm going to pinch that material right on top of that hook, and I'm going to do a loose wrap over, and a third, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to gently just pull straight down, and I'm going to check to make sure that this material is starting to line up right about the halfway point on the side. So see, this one came on this side, this came down a little bit, so this is a good chance to maneuver that and play with it a little bit and kind of get it to where you want it. So that's not bad. It's a little lower than I normally like, but that'll work. All right, now we're going to do the same exact thing with the white bucktail. Same exact procedure. Probably should have had my bucktail already out. We got nice stuff to choose from. I just had to buy a new bucktail on this one. Okay, so again, well, if it just came apart, just get rid of it. Kind of do this number to it, pull out, turn it around. So I've got a bunch of crazies on this one, so I'll come through and I just try to get the super long ones out of there. I mean, I don't mind having some long stuff. I like the way it adds a taper. The ones you really don't want are the short ones. The short ones can really mess with you when you're going to finish the fly. And I'll do it again. There we go. Alright, so yeah, that'll probably work. Alright, and then I'll divide this because I don't need all of that. Save the other side. Now you can do, yeah, this is probably a little bit closer to what I really want in the first place, but there we go. Okay. If you are going to do one side thinner than the other, do the belly. And the belly is going to be white or the lighter of whatever colors you choose to do. You can really do this in whatever colors you want to do. This is kind of one of those patterns where there's not really any rules. I'd say kind of tailor it to whatever local bait fish or shad you have in your area. It'd probably be a good bet. So now we're going to tie this in on the bottom side to just about or just a little shorter than that original length. And again, we're going to do, oh, I got this short guy that's going to give me a fit. I'm going to get rid of him. We're going to do the same thing. I'm just do a loose turn, that's 2. But I want to make sure before I start adding too much that it's going to cover on all sides, and that looks pretty good. And I'll do a third one and tighten it up a little bit. Now what you can do is kind of come underneath. I'm tying this upside down, but you can kind of come underneath and just start wrapping this in. And when you get a little ways back, okay, come in with a pair of scissors and trim this off. Stand the hair up straight and trim it off at an angle so that it gives you a little bit of a taper going down. It really helps keep the shape that you had already worked so hard for and used so much thread for. Okay. I may have cut that a little wonky, but we'll go for it. So now we're going to come and just start tying this all in. And you notice how I'm pinching way up. I'm choking way up on that, the shank. I like that to help control it a little bit better. Okay. And we're going to bring the thread back. Once you have that done, we're going to bring the thread back, and we're going to actually rest this right where we're going to tie it all in, which will be, like I said before, like right at the base of where this crystal flash meets the shank. And then next, to make this easier, get your fingers wet, and you come up and you kind of re-wet everything. And I'll get my fingers wet to do the top side, and then I'll come back and get my fingers wet to do the bottom side. So now it should be looking about like that. If you do have these little guys sticking out, you do want to get rid of them. They will really mess with you bad when you go to when we go to reverse tie this. Probably should have done that before I got everything wet, but I don't have too many sticking out. So that'll be, oh, I got some right there. All right, that's pretty good. Just kind of get that cleaned up. Next comes kind of the fun part, and this is where you get the sort of introductory, I guess, into reverse tying. You take this hollow point pin. If you don't have this, what you're going to do is you're going to fold the top side over, tie it in, and then once that top side's tied in, you're going to fold the bottom over and tie it in. You're going to do that separately. Don't do them at the same time. But if you're going to use this pin, which I highly recommend, we're going to just slide that right over. Whoop, there we go. And we're going to bring it and line it up with our thread because we left it right where the tie-in is going to be. So now you just kind of pinch and pull, and we're going to do some loose wraps, taking your thread and touching turns towards the back. And I've got about 4 or 5 in there, and now I'm going to pull down. And I'm going to work it back to its original starting position. Ooh, I had one come out. That's all right. And we'll fix that in a minute. It's not my best bullet tie. Just for time purposes, I'm not going to go back to correct this, but if this happens to you, it's pretty common. So just undo it, re-wet your hair, and then just put this back on and do that again. And see, I'm actually getting everything to push back. Now I messed it up. Okay, now I got to do it. Way to go. We were so close to finishing it off. That's all right. It goes to show that, this takes a little practice. And I'm gonna leave it in that position and see, that's where I lost it, right there. Yep. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got about 5. Now I'm going to pull down. I can slide this off. I still got that little broken one there, but we will take care of him in a minute. Now, you want to kind of keep drying your fingers off and gently stroking this back just to get any extra moisture out. Or if you want to give it a few minutes to dry, you can do that and then come back and do this part, because otherwise the marker could bleed. Normally I have a red Sharpie to do this. I cannot find my red Sharpie. It has disappeared. I don't know if I took it or my daughter was like, hey, red marker. Either way. So what I do is I color that marker, color that white thread with the red marker. And we may need to do this a couple of times. So the first thing we're going to do is start making wraps around that white thread to get that red color in there. Yeah, I'm going to run out, so I'm going to do it again. Let's come in and color it. It's like art class. I suppose you could do it in a different color if you wanted to. It's really whatever you think is going to work or whatever you feel like doing, really. So now once I have that throat, the throat covered in red thread, now make sure you have enough red thread to whip finish. And I'm just going to come in and do about 3 or 4. Pull that guy tight and trim that off. And then you can come back and do your cleanup or whatever. The one last thing that you want to do with this pattern is you want to let this red thread dry. or the red marked thread dry completely. And then take this off your vise and put it into your cup of water and let it dry naturally that way overnight. It will help keep this shape. So the idea is to have, you know, a nice clean line, transfer line of colors up front. This one's on the bottom side a little bit, but that's okay. It's not a super huge deal. Or you can use red thread here and do that step right away where you just dunk the whole thing in water, pull it out, and just let it sit there to do. So that's the basic Thunder Creek pattern. It's fun to tie. It really doesn't take that long to tie. It should be shorter than the video is. But, you know, you can stop and explain a few things here once in a while, and then it adds time. But yeah, so it's super simple to tie. It can be used cold water, warm water. I mean, it can target bass or panfish or crappie and trout. I mean, you name it, you can get them to chase this guy. Only thing that you really want to remember is dark color up top, light color on the bottom, red collar or red throat, and that's it. So that's the Thunder Creek. Have fun.